You're watching TYT Now. My name's Tina Dupuy, and with me is Tim Mahalski. And this week, Rupert Murdoch, the man who makes the news, who tells the news, who's been, kind of heavy-handed as the CEO and chairman of the News Corporation. He was in front of the British Parliament trying to, not under oath, mind you, but we all saw his testimony yesterday, and basically the gist of it was he had no idea this stuff was going on. He was betrayed by the people who he trusted. And it was the complete opposite of everything that we've ever known or heard about Rupert Murdoch.
He's hands-on, but he's hands-off.
He's completely hands-on, but he knows nothing, so it's very convenient. But he's been very contrite, at least in Britain. He's been saying how sorry he is that this has happened to anybody who was hurt, and he said that it was the most humble day of his life, which is really weird.
Strange.
Right. But to juxtapose this, because there's no, he doesn't have any influence with his media empire. The Wall Street Journal, whose publisher and CEO Les Hinton has just resigned in the wake of this scandal, they on Monday released this ridiculous, very inflammatory, bomb-throwing editorial. I mean, when I read it, I was like, "What is this? What is this written by Gaddafi?" It was not the best public relations.
Yeah, one of the quotes said that we also trust that readers can see through the commercial and ideological motives of our competitor critics. That Schadenfreude, did I say that right?
Yes.
Is so thick that you can't cut it with a chainsaw, especially redolent and lectures about journalistic standards from publications that give Julian Assange and WikiLeaks their moral imprimatur. Really using big words. They want their readers to believe, based on no evidence, that the tabloid excesses one of publications somehow tarnished thousands of other News Corp journalists across the world.
I'll translate. We're not biased. Yeah. People who hate us, they're biased, and they just like to see us suffer because they're biased. What else?
It also then says, the last time the liberal press demanded a media prosecutor, it was to probe the late conservative columnist Robert Novak in pursuit of White House aide Scooter Libby. But the effort soon engulfed a reporter for the New York Times, which had led the posse to hang Novak and his sources. Do our media really want to invite Congress and prosecutors to regulate how journalists gather the news?
I don't think that's a very good example of why, it's like, just don't even go there. Don't even bring up outing a CIA agent, Valerie Plame. I mean, that's the backstory with Robert Novak. I mean, he had his source, Scooter Libby, within the Bush administration.
Blame the liberal press.
Right. It's their fault. Joe Wilson, her husband, said that there wasn't this yellow cake uranium in a New York Times editorial, said that, that there wasn't the yellow cake uranium that Bush was talking about, and so they used Bob Novak to out his wife. Like, they went after his wife. This is not a good example of how to show contrition for the phone hacking scandal that has really blown up in Britain, and it looks like it's coming overseas. But for me, this is not just Schadenfreude.
It kind of
definitely has that there.
The piece also kind of sounded like a CYA, kind of like we want to make sure that we put this out prior to getting any allegations against us. That's kind of what I got from it as well.
We're rubber, you're glue.
Yeah. So let's put this out quick.
Right. It was not very tactful. But the thing for me in this entire scandal, the first thing that I thought of was media consolidation. And with us on the phone right now is David Saldana, who's been on the show before from Free Press. And you guys have been tirelessly working advocates for making the media smaller. Is that right?
Well, that's one way of putting it. We are advocates for maintaining as much diversity in the media as possible, diverse ownership, diverse voices, just the way the founders envisioned it, with a whole marketplace of ideas, of competing ideas, competing ideologies, and what we have today, I'm sure your viewers and listeners will agree, is a small handful of corporations that own way too much media, that dominate the conversation, and regardless of whether they're ideologically right, left, or dangerously in the middle, having too few voices necessarily means you're not getting a full range of the debate. So that's sort of the core of what Free Press does. We are all for more media, more diverse media, more people getting involved in the media, smarter media consumership, all in the name of a better democracy.
So does that mean you just hate business and you want to kill jobs?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, we are very pro-business and particularly pro-competition. What we're looking at in the case of News Corp in particular and media companies in general, from News Corp to AT&T to Comcast, they're not interested in free market competition. They're interested in getting government assistance to kill their competition. We can cite chapter and verse of the many things that News Corp has done over the years to consolidate power and to gain favor with politicians, and that doesn't really set them apart from any other corporation in the same space. I mean, AT&T has spent tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars trying to get this T-Mobile merger forced down our throats. Comcast spent over $100 million getting the merger with NBC. So our take is this. What's happening at News Corp now is a symptom. The disease is media consolidation, and the pathogen for that disease is the money that these corporations are able to throw at policymakers, legislators, regulators, and what have you.
Right. And you used to be a journalist, and of course I'm a journalist, and so I was reading...
It gets better.
That was cruel. But I was reading Brian Stelter's column in the New York Times, or his piece in the New York Times, and he was talking about the main reason that it's really bad to have 6 giant companies as the only ones who own any media is that these companies don't like to navel gaze. They don't report on themselves. And you're seeing that with the News Corp, where Fox News has been, if they've tried to deflect, they've done a horrible job, but they also have had a media blackout and just not talked about it. That is, for me, the biggest argument against media consolidation is that, if you only have a couple of people who are a couple of companies that are reporting the news, they're not going to report on themselves.
Right, that's a very big problem. I mean, one of the really good things that's come out of this scandal is the demonstration that if you have a vibrant competitive media like they do in the UK,
right,
you can actually see how that plays out. I mean,
your competitor will out you for doing illegal criminal activities.
Right, allegedly, which is what the Guardian.
Well, that
did.
was a hypothetical, Dave. I mean, I wasn't accusing anybody of anything.
Sure, but if you look on this side of the Atlantic, the Wall Street Journal has not really hit very hard on this scandal, except to defend Murdoch and News Corp. Fox News has barely mentioned it. In fact, if you go to newscorpwatch.org, a branch of Media Matters, they cite a CNN report that Fox News has barely touched the story, and in fact, on Fox News' media criticism program, Fox News Watch, they affirmatively said, "Yeah, we're not going to touch this."
Right.
They said it when they thought they were in commercial, but they're affirmatively taking steps not to deal with this issue.
Right, Dave. One last question: do you think this is going away, or just getting bigger?
I don't see how it can go away. There's too much at stake here. We've got our quadrennial ownership rules review. There are several Fox-owned stations that are facing FCC license renewal, and the rules require that the owners of those licenses be of good character. Certainly, if there's any truth to the matter of former Fox official Dan Cooper saying that Fox News has a bunker of intelligence gathering where they may or may not be spying on Americans and tracking their emails and phones, what have you. If that's true, I don't know that it is, but if it is, that would be a very, very big deal. Certainly if we find out that they've been hacking the phones of 9/11 victims' families, that's going to be a huge storm. There are allegations, there are investigations going on. If any of that's true, this story is just going to get bigger and bigger. And even if none of those things turn out to be true, what we've had here, fortunately, is an indication to the American people that a lot of corporate power over what you see, read, and hear is a very, very dangerous thing. And hopefully people will take that message to heart and think twice before they back more of these mergers.
Dave Saldana from Free Press, thank you for joining us.
Not a problem at all, Tina. Glad to be here.
We'll see you soon.
Take care.
All right, if the bunker story doesn't turn out, I am going to be so upset. If that's just hyperbole and there's not actually a basement in a bunker where they're like in a war room in the corporate News Corp's headquarters, that's going to really be crappy. Speaking of, let's say, hyperbole and Fox News, John Kasich, he is now the governor of the great state of Ohio. He was a Murdoch employee from 2001 to 2007. He had his own show on Fox News, and then he was a Fox contributor, and now he is a governor of a state of confusion. But this guy, he was on this week, and I just wanted to watch this because it is so. It'll set up my next point. Can we play that video of Kasich?
We have great choice in education. We killed the death tax.
How's your approval rating?
Well, depends. Well, look,
he was giving me a good list.
Let me tell you, this is part of the problem I see in Washington. Okay, look, I mean, approval ratings depends on who takes a poll and what the poll is. Bottom line is, my state was dying. Have you ever been stopped by a policeman who was an idiot? I had this idiot pull me over on 315. Listen to this story. He says to me, he says, you passed this emergency vehicle on the side of the road and you didn't yield. I didn't even see where the heck was it? And the last thing I would ever do would be to pass an emergency. Are you kidding me? He says, well, I understand that. Give me your license. Goes back to the car, comes back, gives me a ticket, says you must report to court. If you don't report to court, we're putting a warrant out for your arrest. He's an idiot.
What do you like? What is he, like 15?
Yeah, I know, right?
You're the governor of the state.
Stupid cop.
Right. So
approval ratings,
right.
They don't matter. It matters the poll, who took it, who actually answered their phone.
Right. Well, now it says that his approval rating is basically 35%. 35% of voters, people who voted for him. We're not talking about a couple of years ago. I mean, the guy's been in office for 3 seconds. He's been in office for now 6 months. He has a 35% approval rating. I mean, you could put, and 35% is what Senator Joe McCarthy had the month before he was sanctioned. Like this is not like, I mean, but now, I mean, you put a German Shepherd in a suit and tie, and you say that he's for the American family. He gets a 30% approval rating without anybody batting an eye. This guy has a 35% approval rating.
But it depends who you ask, according to him, right?
Right. You're asking the wrong pollsters, right? Okay. But here's the thing that is cracking me up about this guy. Besides the fact that he's clearly a puppet of Fox News, and clearly, you're right. And then like he won't, when he's asked about it, he kind of like on This Week he was asked about this, and then he parlayed a question about Rupert Murdoch to there's thugs on football fields. It was really weird.
Wow.
But so here's the thing. The voters in Ohio are saying things like they want lower taxes and smaller government and all this stuff and like all the bromides that you hear from the Republicans.
Yeah.
Right? So he's done that. They just don't like him.
Well,
like when he does it, they don't like it.
Depending on who you ask, though.
Right.
Remember.
Because apparently he's not listening to the right pollsters.
Yeah, exactly. The wrong people are answering their phones.
Right. So the pollster, Peter Brown, said this to the Toledo Blade. He said, by 50 to 32%, voters say that the budget is unfair to people like them. When voters think a politician is treating them unfairly, that's not good for the politician's health. But again, they're saying, we want these things. We want lower taxes. We want that. But then when he has clearly done that, he's been, speaking of bromides, completely boilerplate when it comes to his the thing that he's done. I mean, he's busted unions and tried to make abortion illegal and all the stuff that every other small brand new governor has tried.
Right.
But he's where's Murdoch? Where is he? Come to his aid, because look, there's probably a German Shepherd out there that'll.
Republicans are really good, though, at not answering their questions that they're asked when they're in interviews. It's like you don't go on an interview, get asked a question, and then go and talk about what you came there to talk. You know what I mean?
But that's all. But that's the media training that all politicians get. It's like they're asked about jobs, or they're asked about the economy, and then they're like, but what we really need is less abortion. It's like they can, I mean, that's what you do. It's kind of, and it's really, the onus is on the media. The onus is having on journalists ask follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair when we're talking about Republicans as far as follow-up questions, because if you watch President Obama at his press conferences, he takes follow-up questions, sometimes 2 or 3 follow-up questions, where you have Sarah Palin, where if, hey, what are you guys doing now?
Or if it's not on her hand.
Right. But hey, what are you doing was when she started going off about Paul Revere, and that turned into be a gotcha question. So I think that, when they don't answer it, holding them to account is up to journalists, because they've been trained, absolutely trained to, as you said, not answer any.
Yeah, go on and only talk about what they came to talk about.
Right, exactly. Let me tell you about what we're going to not do in the Senate. So speaking of the government, very strange story. Not very strange story. It's sad. I went to the doctor because I have allergies, and when I was there, the nurse said that I was due for a vaccination.
What?
Right, and I was like, what am I, 9?
Yeah, I was gonna say, are you 6 again?
Right? I was like, wait a second, are you looking at the right chart?
Do you still go to your pediatrician?
But apparently, the CDC has declared that there is an epidemic in California of whooping cough. Right. Yeah, don't do that. Well, I'm immune now, so knock yourself out. But
You're good.
I'm solid. But so so there's been over 1,500 reported cases just in the state of California of whooping cough, and this is something that was supposed to be eradicated due to vaccinations years ago. No one's been having whooping cough issues.
Is this what Mexico's responsible for, just like the swine flu?
See, you're doing right, exactly. The foreigners, right? Okay. No, and there's actually a better explanation for this.
Oh.
Right. So there's been 6 infants so far that have died in California, and so now the CDC is saying that they're mandating that all freshmen that are going into California high schools be immunized. But California as a state has not. There isn't a mandate because there's been a scare about vaccinations, and we have this video.
Babies get as many as 6 or sometimes 7 vaccines altogether, and the CDC is admitting that they don't always research them that way. And one prime example is the flu vaccine. We've researched the flu vaccine in great detail, and it seems safe when it's given alone, but the CDC has never researched the flu vaccine when you give it in conjunction with all the other infant shots.
I'm not, nor is the autism community, anti-vaccine. We're anti-toxin, and we're anti-schedule. Well, the schedule back in 1983 was 10 shots given. Today, there are 36 shots given. I think that's too many too soon.
American parents would make very different decisions about how they vaccinate their children were they given the proper information.
One of the reasons that I'm here is the toxicity of vaccinations as they have been used for such a long time in this country.
It's not in the best interest of your children. You're going to be trading some innocent types of diseases that we now know how to handle better.
Innocent types of diseases like the measles and whooping cough, which apparently is fatal to babies. This has been for the last 10 years. About a decade ago, there was a study that showed some kind of a link between autism and vaccinations. So what happened, it was a bunch of people who are not doctors, and too many shots is ridiculous. I mean, that's like, there's too many pills that you take to cure your, it's just ridiculous. It's the whole idea. So Jenny McCarthy gets on board and some other celebrities, and it turns into this hysteria.
Like Scientology.
Okay. A little bit, I mean, but it has to do with, protecting children and whatever. And so a bunch of, and I'm going to say it, they're yuppies. And I'm saying this, I'm not saying this just to be mean, but I'm saying this because in Marin County, you have the fewest amount, which is the richest county in California. Marin County has the fewest amount of kids being vaccinated now, and the most fatalities due to whooping cough. So this is a yuppie movement of people the helicopter parents trying to save their kids from everything. And so instead of vaccinating them, they end up dying of a disease that has been eradicated from this continent for 50 years.
Right, I mean, there's no hard evidence that says the schedule causes this.
Right, there was one report that was debunked and debunked and debunked and debunked, and there are other studies, and they found absolutely no evidence. And instead of going, okay, that one study was clearly wrong, because that's what happens in science. There are things that when you make a mistake, you amend that and you find the next conclusion. It's not just deciding that you are right and then excluding all evidence that could prove you to be wrong. But it turns into a conspiracy theory when you have this like hyper competence. Right? So there's this evil overlord that's coming in, and they're trying to kill all the yuppie babies. But what annoys me about this is that...
Did you take your vaccine? You got the vaccine?
Do not touch this arm. I am in pain.
You ended up doing it.
Well, my doctor actually had whooping cough, and she was like, well, you won't, if you don't take the shot, you won't die. You'll just have a bad cough for 3 to 4 months. And I was like, oh give me the needle. I'm like, I'll do it myself. I don't care. Just give me the... Give me the syringe. I got this. So yeah, no, I got it. I mean, but I was vaccinated. I mean, I didn't have measles or any of that stuff. I mean, I wasn't, because I'm not of that age where kids weren't vaccinating their children. But what it reminds me of is the satanic panic in the 80s, where everybody was afraid of these, there was this, I mean, and it became pretty mainstream. It was, it was on 2020 and Geraldo, where everybody was afraid of these Satanists. Right. These Satanists that were going to rape your children. And while everyone was looking for a Satanist raping your children, you had Catholic priests who were raping children. So it's kind of this weird...
But they would do it in the Lord's name. So.
But this hysteria is not constructive.
Yeah.
And when we're talking, we have to have a rational decision or a rational conversation about children's health. And just saying that there's too many shots because you were on some show on MTV.
And your kid has autism, you think that gives you a platform to just
so
go
all
out.
other evidence gets excluded because you know that you're right. It's all hyperbole and rumor and like, oh, we're just saying that we're calling autism treating vaccination toxicity, and it's like, no, that's incorrect. That is not right. So they don't have evidence. They have fear. And these are kids are, they're legitimately autistic.
And just theory, yeah. They just have just made up, like, let's make a theory that if you get too many shots in a certain amount of time.
Well, I mean, there was one report that said this, and he was a quack doctor who has absolutely no credibility, and other people have debunked that, and we have to move on and just get kids vaccinated. I mean, California is the 8th, if it was its own country, it would be the 8th largest economy in the world. And there's an epidemic of a disease from,
and there's proof that where the kids are dying,
right?
And who's not getting vaccinated.
Yuppies.
I mean, that's proof. That's not theory.
No, it's
right?
I mean, it's it's indirect evidence, but that's evidence. So yeah, find this to be very scary. Speaking of scary conspiracies. Michelle Bachmann. Like that?
I was hoping. That's what I was hoping you were going with.
She's been in the Congress for only, a couple of sessions. I think it's like 2. I mean, she's barely been in hasn't been there for very long. She's an unaccomplished lawmaker. She doesn't have any memorable piece of, or any real piece of legislation with her name on it.
Except for what the Lord has told her to do.
Well, that still doesn't get your name on a piece of legislation, apparently. So her former aides, and it's hard to think that someone who's been in Congress for 3 seconds has all these former aides, but she has former aides who basically are out to get her and to dish anything that they can. So they go to the Daily Caller, which is Tucker Carlson, known for his journalistic integrity, and they print an anonymous sourced story about how she gets migraines and they're debilitating and she has to take all these drugs and blah, blah, blah.
She's been hospitalized for it.
She's been hospitalized a couple of times, and that therefore she has, is not credible, or not credible, but that should disqualify her from being president because she gets these stress-induced headaches. Right.
So she'll have one every day. She'll be in the hospital every day.
But, right. Obama's gotten really gray very quickly. But so here's the thing. There are so many reasons she shouldn't be president.
Yeah, this is
like, wait, I mean, this is legitimate. If she was flawless in every other way, if you looked at her and went, wow, she's smart, competent, she speaks for me. I think, she can work with the Congress. I really think that this woman, she's going all the way. I want to support her. And then you're like, whoa, migraines? I don't know, could be a deal killer. This is not Michelle Bachmann.
No. I thought, but also too, I think this can I thought that they were going to use this as a way to make her relatable to people.
Ooh, interesting.
I get migraines as well. I'm voting for her.
You give me a headache. I love you. Yeah. but we put this together this video. Let's look at it. Here's some reasons why she should not be president. It has nothing to do with her, well, at least the ache in her head.
The president doesn't want to have to be confronted with priorities and spending because he has a lot of chutzpah. Just like John Wayne was from Waterloo, Iowa, that's the kind of spirit that I have too.
You said that the founding fathers worked tirelessly to end slavery.
If you look at one of our founding fathers, John Quincy Adams, that's absolutely true. That's what we did in our country. We changed it. We no longer have slavery. That's a good thing.
So you're saying that the minimum wage is one of those regulations you'd take a look at, you'd try to eliminate it?
Well, what I'm saying is that I think that we need to look at all regulations. Carbon dioxide is perhaps 3% of the total atmosphere that's in the earth. Human activity contributes perhaps 3% of the 3%. In other words, human activity is maybe 3% contributing to the 3% of carbon dioxide that's in Earth's atmosphere.
There is a point when you say enough is enough to government intrusion. Does the federal government really need to know our phone numbers? Do they really need to know, like you said, the date and time that we leave, mental stability? The one question that's not on this survey, Glenn, are you a U.S. citizen? They use the U.S. Census information to round up the Japanese and put them in the internment camps.
The U.S. Census. Oh, you know where the U.S. Census is mentioned?
What?
The Constitution. Yeah. So besides the fact that she's clearly she's totally pro-Semitic in this kind of creepy, over-the-top kind of way, but has never talked to a Jew where she knows that it's chutzpah. Come on, really, dude? This is not a deal breaker, but I know it's finally I was like,
Yeah, this is just the icing on the cake.
A friend of mine on Twitter, or somebody I follow on Twitter, said that she suffers from migraines. I always thought that she was just a carrier. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, and we have a very special in-studio guest. We're so excited. Yeah. We get to see them. So stick around. We'll be right back. And we're back. You're watching TYT Now, and during the break, Lee Levine, my buddy here, joined us and immediately made fun of me saying that I didn't say chutzpah right. It's chutzpah. It's chutzpah. Look, no, it's not chutzpah, right?
I'm Tina from Hollywood, and it's chutzpah.
Schmutz on my schmata. All right, Lee Levine, comedian, my friend. We found this video, or I didn't find this. We didn't find this video. This was on Gawker. I think Progress did it first. we wanted you on to talk about the reaction to a joke and what laughter actually means. So let's watch this video.
Who grew up in Iowa, or have Iowa ties, and they'll call some of them in Denver today or Chicago or wherever. They say that they're the butt of a lot of jokes. Yeah, you know, around the office place about, well, Iowa, you know how those guys are. You know? So,
you know what my wife says? She says, Iowa, a state where you can't smoke a fag, but you can marry one. Somebody's going to bring that one up. Yeah, you can't smoke a fag. That's pretty. Oh, shoot.
Okay, first off, he repeated his joke twice. Like, he got a big laugh, and then he was like, but let me repeat it again, which is such an open micer thing to do.
In case you don't get the pejorative form of the word fag, and the double entendre with the word fag, and then hilarity ensues.
But just to set this up, that was the guy who wrote the marriage vow, telling people to, to swear against pornography and that marriage sex is the best sex. And Santorum, being the open-minded guy that he is, he signed in, and Michelle Bachmann because,
And that homosexuality is somehow equivalent to slavery.
Right.
At some point?
Right. Exactly. That it was actually better for no. It was better for black children under slavery because at least they had two parents.
That's correct. Yes.
With them all day long, raising them in a family household.
Reading to them at night and
private school,
that was right. No, it was much better during slavery. Right, private school, absolutely. You know what? Homeschooling, even better. Even better.
One-on-one.
Yes. So, but I love that he repeated the joke over again. Like it got there's nothing worse than going to an open mic and someone who's never gotten a laugh on stage before, ever, will suddenly get a laugh and then they'll go, oh. Now I'm just going to tell that joke right now for the next 5 minutes. And I'm like, it's going to get funnier every time.
Just repeat it again for effect.
So what do you, as a professional comic, when someone laughs at something you say, what does that mean?
When they laugh at it, well, there's a couple of laughs that you can get. You can get the laugh that they're laughing at you, that they're laughing with you, and that they're in on it, or they're laughing at something that you did. In that case, I think they're laughing at a joke, and what's really offensive, it's just a bad joke. It's so out there, it's been around for so long, and it's so obvious. And when's the last time you've heard anyone use the word fag in reference to a cigarette?
Not on this side of the Atlantic.
Not forever.
It's like a joke you use in middle school, trying to say the word fag twice with your friends.
Right, exactly.
Trying to sound cool.
But also, to me, it's kind of an insight into this guy's psyche because they've been trying at least to say that they're pro-marriage and they're so pro-traditional values and they have so much love for in their Christian hearts for humanity that they don't want it to be depleted by those homosexuals, loving each other legally. Mm-hmm. Or having legal rights, that to see a video of a guy laughing at a fag joke when he's clearly in his 40s, and he's an activist trying to deny a minority of people their rights. I find that it's a kind of a window into what he really believes, which is he just doesn't like gay people.
It's offensive, but it's consistent. You know what I mean? It's consistent with all the other stuff that he does. This is a guy who clearly hates gay people, so I'm not surprised when he uses the pejorative. I am sure that's not the worst thing. I'm sure he's got a version for pole smokers and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff that he, that's probably the tamest thing that he said.
Or that he's laughed at, right?
Exactly.
Well, but that's they're like, oh, homosexual, I just love that gay porn. I just can't keep off the internet with that gay porn. They are such horrible people. I just love that gay porn.
There's just such a good plot in gay porn.
But the state that watches the most porn in the country, do you want to guess?
Iowa. Utah.
Yes.
Wow. I did not know that.
50% LDS, 50% Mormon in Utah. It's the most as far as church and state. It has the least fine line, let's say, a non-existent blurring of church and state. And if you look on the internet statistics of what state watches the most pornography. Utah.
Wow.
So so we are disgusted by what we are most attracted to.
I would think the men would get enough from all their multiple wives. then you go to porn.
Dude, we've talked about this. Like, come
all
on.
polygamy means is you're not getting laid by a lot of wives.
What we've talked, because Tim and I have talked about this at length with secular polygamy.
Right.
And the last thing, because everybody's assumption is that you're just, everyone's having sex all over the time. It's an orgy every night. To me, it's just like talking a lot about your feelings.
To me, that's just a lot of women going, not tonight, honey.
Right. Or like a lot of men going, really? You know, come on, that's all you got? Like, oh, wow.
Come on, the game's on. Move your head.
A lot of men ignoring you and hanging out with other men is what that sounds to me. So, So you've been watching the debt ceiling debate.
Riveted by the debt ceiling debate.
So what is the debt ceiling? What are we talking about? You're like let's talk about what is the debt ceiling?
It's agreeing to pay our bills.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about it. We're going to go ahead and pay for the stuff that we've already committed to.
Right.
So that we can continue to operate.
I thought when you run a business, though, it's the government is run like a business. Don't you need to pay your bills?
The government's not run like a business at all.
He was being sarcastic.
Okay.
Right. It's owned like a charity. I mean, a business doesn't go and take care of grandma when they get
400 people paid by other people trying to run that business with competing interests.
Right. That was what you call sarcasm.
I missed that. I missed it.
It's because it's there.
I don't peg him for sarcasm. I didn't think he was capable.
Right. No, there you go. Tim's big surprise. So now we have, and since like 1962, the Congress has passed the debt ceiling 69 times. It's one of the least controversial bill. It happens all the time. Everybody's done it. It's the debt ceiling's on everyone's hands, especially John Boehner, especially Cantor. But now the Republicans are like, ooh, we got a good one. We could melt the earth. Now we're going to do something.
And make political hay out of melted earth.
And so now next week it's going to be, if they don't pass anything in the next couple of days, there's going to be the countdown to Armageddon and, on Fox.
It makes for great TV, it really does.
And there's like, we're going to melt down and who's to blame and who's going to win politically and all the time.
What's
it's
next?
Like, right. But, so this is the thing that cracks me up, is that the solution that the Republicans have come up with, right, is to amend the Constitution, which is the most unrealistic thing to ever do ever. It's like saying, okay, we can't go to the moon until we go to Neptune. Then we go to the moon. Like, in order to amend the Constitution, I mean, it literally takes years. I mean, you have to, Congress with 2/3 majority, a supermajority in both houses, has to make the proposal, right? And then it goes to the states. 3/4 of the states have to ratify it. I mean, we're talking about years of people yelling at each other and debate and whatever, and like tiny little, like New Hampshire holding stuff up because they want to do something, whatever. It's years, right? But that's their only solution. It's something that no one's been able to accomplish anytime in recent memory. Is the only thing that they think will really save us.
So August 2nd.
3 days, right? 3 days before everything blows up.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was not a serious attempt. It was a grandstand. I mean, not like they were serious, like, hey, this is really going to pass. They're like, they just threw it together. This sounds really good. We're amending the Constitution. They can't spend any money. We're going to dismantle Medicare. Right. It's all fantastic. It was just for show, though. I mean, it was kind of like, hey, check us out.
But it says the word Constitution, so it sounds really
important.
Patriotic.
Exactly. Balance was in there.
Right.
Cap, cut.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
cut spending, and there's like,
balance.
And God loves puppy
dogs. By the way, I want my
dogs.
conditioner to cap, cut, and balance. I think that would be awesome.
I hate to break this to you.
Shut up.
Actually, I would like to break this to you. Really? Shampoo? That was
Scalp
the first thing that you
conditioner.
came up with.
It was on the fly.
All right, that's all the time we have. Tune in next week. And, I have one last thing. I forgot to mention Michael Hussey, and I think it's probably Hussey, but I forgot to mention his...
It's Hussey. With chutzpah.
Check him out at pushingrope.blogspot.com. And, we're always on Facebook.
Heck, you can either follow me on Twitter, one word, be there.